down at the shirt that you're wearing. Feel the material. What is it made of? Did you choose that shirt because you like the effect? Do you know where the material came from? Do you know whether your shirt is a knit or a woven fabric? Is it a natural fiber harvested from a plant or an animal, or is it a synthetic fiber? Do you know? Well, this right here is wool roving from a Mennonite farm in northern Pennsylvania. They use old techniques to grow and harvest their sheep and wool to raise them. And so if your shirt had been made from wool harvested from that farm, well, then you would know. This presentation is hand spinning and art yarn, and it is a presentation for University of North Texas. I'm Holly Guerrero. So there are lots of different fibers that can be used for spinning. For the purposes of this presentation, we're just going to stick to wool. Wool is a natural fiber harvested from an animal. There are also other fibers that are harvested from plants, such as cotton, one that many of us are very familiar with. And then there are non-natural fibers, such as nylon, that are synthetic and used for a different purpose. Wool is generally used in areas that are colder, where they need more protection to keep themselves warm. And wool does a very good job of insulating, and it provides an awesome layer of protection against the cold weather. Cotton is a natural fiber harvested from plants, and it can also be used to spin and to make textiles, either rugs or towels or rags or clothing. Nylon is another fiber. It's a synthetic fiber, and it's also used to make clothes, and you can use it for spinning. But it has a different effect. It has a sleeker texture and tends to be a bit shiny. When spinning art yarn, nylon is a great choice for adding a pop of color or adding a different texture to the yarn that you're spinning. So the Mennonite farm that I purchased my wool from, as I mentioned, is in northern Pennsylvania, and I happen to know that the herding and shearing practices that they use there are very old traditional practices that have been passed down and learned throughout the generations. The shearers are highly skilled, and that's what they specialize in. That's what they do. They're highly skilled shearers. It's best when the sheep are sheared by hand. It's best for the sheep, and it's best for the wool. For the sheep, because a hand shearer can be careful enough to protect the sheep's skin and only get the wool. A mechanical shear sometimes can cause problems with the wool, causing lacerations, deaths. It can leave the sheep severely mutilated. And there have been a lot of PETA investigations on shearing of this type because it causes such a high risk to the sheep. As far as wool goes, whenever you shear the sheep, you get the long individual locks. And for making art yarn, that is a wonderful choice because it gives a great texture and unique factor to the art yarn that you're spinning. Another thing about shearing the sheep is that this is not harmful to them. This is a part of their welfare as a natural part of their life cycle. They grow wool naturally. So this is a good practice to maintain the health of the sheep. Whenever they're hand shorn, it's not harmful to them. And in fact, it's very helpful and beneficial. So spinning throughout the ages, all throughout history, in all civilizations, we can find art such as this painted on walls in ancient civilizations showing women and men spinning wool, because in ancient times it was a very respectable practice. In the beginning, as far as we know, some of the very first spindles we have, today we're using a drop spindle, which is still an older technique, but in the very beginning they used rocks to spin wool. and they would just twist out a little piece of it and make a little, what we call a leader, which is the beginning part of yarn. So they would just twist it together and kind of felt the wool together, the fiber, and then wrap it around the rock, and they would spin the rock. And as they would spin the rock, they'd pull the wool into it and then wrap it around the rock and spin it and spin it. So as far as we know, this is the earliest form of spinning. As time progressed, they started adding the rock with a stick, and sometimes it was a hooked stick. And so they would use the rock to add weight to their hooked stick spindle for spinning the rock and then using the stick to wrap it around. Things started to progress. From that point, once the hooked stick and the rock were combined, then a huge variety of spindles began to come out with all sorts of mechanical aspects to them, pedals and things like that. Even still today, whenever you're hand spinning, they're very rarely done by machine spindles. Even though they have mechanical pieces, they're not electrical by any means. They're run by pedals that turn gears to keep the spindle moving. So the cleaning process. This is probably my least favorite part of spinning. Fortunately, this wool I did not purchase raw. I purchased this from the Mennonite farm, and they send it to me prepared. However, if you have this right here is called fleece, and a fleece is an entire piece of shorn wool from one single sheep. So as you can imagine, sheep walk around in the pasture, they roll around in the grass, they sleep in the dirt, they get in the water. So whenever you shear a sheep and you get one fleece, it's full of something that we call vegetable matter. Now vegetable matter is going to be sticks, it's going to be dirt, it's going to be manure, it's going to be a lot of stuff. So the first part of the cleaning process is called skirting. And what they do is they take the fleece. These ladies are carding, which we'll get to that in a minute. So they take this is fleece that's already been skirted. So you take the fleece and you start to pick through it, and you just pick out as much of the vegetable matter that you can find that's on the surface. After skirting, you've pulled apart the locks and you've pulled apart the fibers, and then you have a nice fluffy bunch of wool. The next part in the cleaning process is going to be washing it. So sheep naturally have grease that protects their skin, and it gets into the wool fibers. It's a very, very, very thick grease, and it's called lanolin. So before the wool can be spun into anything usable, you have to get the lanolin out. Otherwise, it's going to be sticky and clumpy, and it's not going to look nice. It's going to get dirty very easily because it's going to attract all the dirt particles to it. There is a caveat to this, however, because wool felts. So anytime it touches hot water, it is in danger of felting. Anytime it experiences agitation, it's in danger of felting. So we kind of have a dilemma here when it comes to washing it, because we have to wash it in water that's at least 140 to 160 degrees, hot enough to melt the lanolin, but we can't agitate it. So this wool, and really any raw wool, does best whenever it's washed with Dawn dish detergent, because it doesn't leave any kind of residue or anything like that. So for the cleaning process, you just have to get the water really, really hot, not quite boiling, but almost. And then you gently place the wool inside a mesh bag, and then put the bag in the water so that the wool isn't moving around. Then you add your Dawn dish detergent to the water, and you use a stick and just push the wool down into the water and come back up, so that the only agitation it's getting is the water going up and down through its fibers. After you do that just a few times, so as not to cause any felting, You have to let it sit for about half an hour, but not long enough for the water to cool too much, because since there's lanolin in the water, if it cools too much, it's going to harden again and reattach itself to the wool. So after that washing process, now it's time for carding. So you pull the wool out, you have to let it dry, and once it dries, then you're going to card. Carding is a second form of skirting. So skirting, remember, was to remove the vegetable matter, but it's not a complete process because you're just doing it by hand. So carding can be done, you see they have these two paddles. I would use like dog brushes, with the metal bristles, because it's the same effect. And so with carding, you take the paddle and you just kind of pick off little pieces of the wool and you stick just one end to the paddle and you fill up the paddle. And then you brush it one way, you flip it over and you brush it the other way, and that helps to make sure that all the fibers in the lock are going the same direction. Now remember, I said this is a bat because it's carded. If you wanted to make a roving, you would skip that process and instead use a carder that's circular, so it pulls it through, but not in a back and forth motion. Just pulls it through once and then it comes off in a long thing with all the locks still in place, brushing through it, getting away the residual vegetable matter. Okay, so after carding, then we have this thing called a bat, which is what we have here. Each of you have your own small pieces, a few ounces worth of bat, but I wanted to show you. Right here, I have 2 pounds of bat. You can see, I just want you to see.
It's only 2 pounds.
This is only 2 pounds of bat, yeah. And this is probably a couple of fleeces, I would imagine. But you can see how it's flat, it's wide, and it's thick. And, but all the fibers are going the same direction. And this is then what we use. I've peeled off short strips for spinning. A roving is just a small strip, and they're always about this wide, always in a straight line. But a bat is a very large, like, sheet of cleaned, carded, skirted wool. If you wanted to dye the wool, you would do it at this stage. Here, I have some yarn that I have already made and washed and dyed, and it's still drying a little bit, but you can see, if you want to pass around and look at that, it's a nice goldenrod color, and I dyed that with turmeric powder. So all I did, it can be as simple as that. All I did was dissolve some of that turmeric powder in warm water, and then I put a pot of water on the stove, warmed it up almost to boiling, stuck my wool in there, poured in the turmeric powder solution, and let it sit for 30 minutes. Pulled it out, rinsed it off with vinegar, because vinegar helps it to adhere to the fiber, and then let it dry, and there you go. Now I have some beautiful goldenrod colored yarn that I can use to make something. So, roving and batting, we've talked about this a little bit. You can see this picture here is a picture of roving. So roving, whenever you get it, generally it's kind of braided and it looks thick. You can kind of see the different parts here where the roving is braided together. It's very smooth. And actually for spinning, it's a little bit more difficult to spin with versus the batting, since the fibers are kind of interlocked. It's easier to pull it out. It's not so fragile as roving is. Dyeing. Now you can see here in this picture there's a lot of different plants, and plants dyeing wool and fibers with natural plant colors is something that has been happening for generations, centuries, and it's very easy to do. As I told you and showed you, this was done with turmeric powder. Now turmeric is a root, so I imagine in ancient times they may not have had it in powder form, but turmeric gives off a great color no matter which way you use it. So even if I were to take the root and do it whole, I would throw it into some water, let it boil until the water grabs the right color. And this is what you do when using any kind of vegetable for dyeing. Flowers, you would grind them up and make a paste, and then put the paste in the water that you're washing the rhodin with. So there are lots of options, and especially today there's a lot of commercial options and dye solutions. Kool-Aid is a great option that many reputable spinners use to dye their yarn because it stains. It doesn't come out of your clothes, does it? It doesn't come out of the wool either. Beets are a great one. Yeah, beets give a wonderful, rich color. Okay, so now we are going to talk about actually spinning. So if everyone can grab a spindle, please. Good. So this is called a drop spindle. There are several different kinds of spindles. This is one of the easiest to make. It's great for beginners to use because there's not a lot of fancy pieces and whorls and spindles and bobbins and stuff, flyers and all that stuff. So this is an easy place to start. It has a few parts that I want to go over with you. So it has a shaft. The shaft is going to be the long dowel in the middle, and then it has a whorl, which is the disc on here. And then it has the hook at the top. And those are the only three parts involved in a drop spindle. Now in this picture, this is a bottom whorl drop spindle. A bottom whorl drop spindle is good for plying after you've already made your yarn. So you make a single, which is this. It's only been spun once with one strand of yarn. If I wanted to ply this, then I would take this. If I had two, say a blue one and a yellow one, then I would take the two, twist them together, and then twist them on, and then I would have a double-plied, a two-plied yarn. But today, since we're just doing singles, a top whorl, which means the whorl is close to the hook. Now, we also have a leader. All of you should have a piece of yarn in front of you. This is your leader. It's easiest to start with a leader because it's commercial yarn and it's not going to break. And so it's a great way to get our yarn, our wool started. Okay, so take your leader and fold it in half. And now you're going to put this end over the top, where the hook is at, on top of the whorl. If you have any questions at any point, feel free to let me know. Okay, now you're going to wrap it over. Oops, I'm going to have to spin it so it doesn't come apart. And wrap it around the bottom. You see how this goes here, around the bottom, and back over the top. So around the bottom, and then pull it back over the top. But keep your two pieces of your leader together. Good. Okay. Yes. So after you've folded your leader in half, you put it over the top, onto the shaft, around the bottom. You have to twist it to keep the pieces together. And then you're going to wrap it around the shaft. Good. And then bring it back up in the same spot that you took the original piece over. Okay, got it? Now you're going to wrap it around the shaft on the top. You can do that once or twice. And then hook it through. And you should be able to hang your drop spindle by holding the leader. Good. Okay. Now, take your wool. Just have a few pieces, just a small portion, and unroll it so that it's all laying out flat. So we have our drop spindle and we have our wool. Now we're going to do something called drafting, which means we're just going to pull. You have to be careful because the wool will come apart. Just hold it about 2 inches, 1.5 inches down, and you're going to gently pull. You see how it's just a little bit right here? Good, good. Yeah, a little bit more. There you go. Okay. Now we're going to take our 2 pieces of the leader and we're going to put the draft in between those 2 pieces. So you see how it's going sideways in between? Okay, we're going to hold it there. Now, we're going to use what's called the park and draft method. Since y'all are sitting down, y'all are at an advantage. Good. Hold it up a little bit closer to the end and not so close to the hook. Yeah, good. Okay, so now we're going to put some tension in our leader. So we're going to spin it until the leader wants to go up, until it's got so much tension that it wants to go up. Now you might take your wool and put it kind of like over your shoulder. That way it doesn't get caught up. Yeah. So spin it and get some tension in your leader. Good, good, good. And you can see how the wool at the top is starting to wrap around the leader. Okay. So now we're going to park it. Y'all can park it in between your knees. I'm going to park it under my arm. Okay, now just gently rub the little piece that's up there at the top. I think you need to put a little bit more tension in it so that it doesn't fall out. Yeah, there you go. Okay. Now just rub where the wool is connected to your leader so that you can help it kind of spin a little bit. On this piece right here, yeah, just leave that off like that. Now hold this piece. Yeah, because it's already hanging on. Okay. Okay, good. Now that we've done that, let's put a little bit more tension in our, there we go. When it starts to scooch up,
Scooching is winding.
Good, good, good. Yeah, we got it. That's okay. It's not a problem. Actually, I was going to tell you, this is a great example because you see how thick this is right here? Mm-hmm. That means that you need to draft it a little bit more, which means just pull it. Don't connect it right now. We'll connect it in a minute. Just pull on the end slightly, very lightly, to pull the fibers away from each other and elongate them a little more. Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. A little bit more. Here. There you go. You see how that's longer now and not so thick?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we added some more tension. Now, we want to make sure to always keep the tension from flooding our wool. So we're going to keep our fingers right here. And we're going to draft just a little bit until it's thin, till we just have a thin piece. So you're going to very lightly pull. Okay, keep your fingers right here. Yeah. We're not wanting it to travel into our yarn, into our wool yet. So hold it right at the tip of your leader and then draft on this side. Don't spin it anymore. Park it. Yeah, right now we have it parked and we're drafting. There you go. Yes. And pull it, but don't spin it. Just pull it. Yeah.
Kind of thin here.
Yeah, you're good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, unspin it then?
Yeah, unspin it. Yeah. Now, scoot your fingers back a little bit. A little bit more, and now tug on it a little bit. That's okay. It's okay. We can connect it, no problem. But now this is the size that you want it. Okay. Okay, so now we have some tension and we have it drafted. So scoot your fingers back about 1.5 inches you have to keep holding right here. And on the other side, hold it 1.5 inches back. And then you're gonna let go, and the tension's gonna travel up and spin that piece. Now let go with this hand.
Are you sure?
Yeah. And now pull it up.
What, the pull part?
It's okay. It's not. Oh, you don't have any tension down here. Yeah, so spin it to add tension. Keep spinning, keep spinning, keep spinning. Good, good, good. Keep spinning until you can feel it in your fingers. Okay. Okay, now hold this side so that the tension doesn't travel up. Scoot out about 1 inch. And now let it go. Let go with this hand. There you go. See?
Okay.
Even though it's a thin piece right there, it should be enough to hold because wool's pretty strong. Okay. Now we're going to do it again. So spin. Actually, before we do that, it's okay. Okay, so holding your spindle, unspin it from the top to where it's just on the bottom of the whorl. So unwrap it around the shaft. Yeah. Good. And now we're going to twist what we've spun around the shaft, below the whorl. Yeah, so don't let go or you're gonna lose your twist. Okay, go to the bottom and now spin it. Wrap it around. Okay, stop. Good.
Wrap the whole string?
Not all the way, about half of it, because you're still gonna need enough to go back to the.
I have lost one pieces here. Oh man. So now I've got to start over. It is okay.
Okay, now unwrap yours a little bit so that you can pull it back over the whorl to the. Very good. Okay, so now that you've all had a chance to try this for yourselves, I'm just going to give you a short demonstration on how this works. So we have the spindle. We've already gone through the different parts of it, the shaft, the whorl, and the hook. And this is now our wool. So first, we want to add some tension. So we'll spin the spindle until it starts to unwind a little bit. And then we'll draft some wool out, which means we're just going to pull the fibers until we have a nice skinny little piece here. And then holding our hand back, we're going to release these fingers that are holding the tension in place. Whenever I do that, the tension is going to travel up to my next stop point, which is on this hand. So as you can see, it just spun right all the way up. Now I still have a little bit of tension left, so I'm going to scoot back a little bit more, about 1 inch more, and let it go. And I think I can probably do a little bit more, a little bit farther. Yeah. Now you can see the very top of this right here, it did not twist, it did not spin. So that means that I don't have enough tension left in my yarn to continue to spin up. So that's when we take our spindle, we add some tension, park it, hold the tension in place, draft some out, hold our new stopping point, and let it spin. We're going to pull just a little bit to make sure that no kinks stay down here on this end and that they travel all the way up. And again, I still have enough tension left to go up a little bit further, but not too much. Okay. Now if I keep going, I'm going to run out of arm length. So I'm going to unwind it and continue to wrap what I've already spun on the bottom side of the whorl. Pull it up, wrap it back around, hook it through, and we'll do it one more time. So spin, draft, spin, park, draft, and release. And I'll draft and release. A little bit more. Draft my fibers and release. Spin, park, draft, release. Okay? One more time. Spin, park, draft, release. And that's it. It's a time-consuming project. It's very rewarding. I love being able to, I love the meditative value of spinning wool. It's very calming to me. Any questions so far? No? It takes some getting used to. You have to find your rhythm. So I wanted to thank you all for coming and being a part of this class for hand spinning and art yarn. I know a few of you are interested in you're interested in the spinning class for yourself, right? Okay, yes. And the other two I know are interested in the class as a form of home economics kind of supplemental classes for your homeschool children. Okay. So together today we have examined some of the history of wool. We've walked through a short demonstration where you got the chance to spin raw wool into yarn, and then this yarn can later be used to create textiles and clothing and art yarn and an unlimited amount of things that your ideas and creativity could help you to use it for. So you got to experience this ancient process firsthand, and we took a little look at its evolution over the years. Today we live in a modern world that has allowed us to survive so distanced from the roots of ancient society and traditional practices that it's good to ensure that these techniques don't die off with the older and aging generations. For me, this is something that I want to preserve and keep alive and gift to the upcoming generations, because there's a lot of wisdom to be found in these types of practices that take time and patience and endurance and an eye for quality and ensuring that the product that you're creating means something and has some kind of value. And that's completely lost on today's mass production society. For me, having these kind of abilities and skills helps support my family. This is something that means a lot to me, and people who support small businesses are directly supporting moms and dads on children's table in a very direct way. So I want to thank you all for allowing your creativity and your curiosity to bring you here today and participate in this wonderful ancient art form with me. If you want to learn more about this art, its history, and the sustainable practices, I encourage you to come and join our diverse class of fiber lovers and to take part in this meditative practice of spinning and dyeing yarn. If you look in your pack, you will see there's a flyer for my class in there. Feel free to contact me, email me, or you can talk to me today after this class. There is also in your packet a training evaluation form. If you will please fill that out for me, I would really appreciate your feedback. And again, thank you so much for taking your time out to come and be a part of this class. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you.